Rachel Reeves is a disaster, and Keir Starmer's leadership is shambolic. The other day, I went to PMQs, that's Prime Minister's Questions, and I can see why they call it that, because it was just questions. There were no answers. They don't ever answer a flaming question.
Nana Akua has sent shockwaves through the media by boldly exposing Labour's shady schemes live on air. Despite painting an alluring picture during the election, the Labour Party's leadership clearly lacks foresight and serious planning. People are beginning to see through their empty slogans, realising that Labour's promises are nothing more than hollow rhetoric. These dark plans could very well mark a new and troubling chapter in British politics. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
From that dispatch box, the Minister for Rural Affairs said that he'd been congratulated by a farmer over the introduction of the inheritance tax. Now, I think this farmer must have been a cannabis farmer, because just yesterday we had 10,000 farmers on Whitehall protesting against this madcap decision. So does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with me that this decision should be thrown in the trash can along with Rachel from Accounts?
Of course, they didn't answer the question. There was no justification for avoiding it. The question, posed by Lee Anderson to Angela Rayner, remained unanswered. Meanwhile, the Labour government seems entirely disconnected from the realities of everyday life, from the struggles of the poor to the challenges faced by ordinary workers. Westminster, wrapped in its bubble, has distanced itself from the daily lives of the public. They might believe that holding a majority in Parliament grants them free rein to act without public consensus. How many policies are they now pursuing that were never mentioned in their manifesto? It's hardly surprising to suspect that Rachel Reeves thinks she can escape accountability while pushing an anti-business budget. These reckless decisions are leading the country into grave danger, such as jeopardising food security by attacking farmers' inheritance rights or undermining energy security with ill-conceived policies. They've squandered £22 billion with no tangible outcomes, plunging us into poverty through gimmicks like carbon capture schemes. These energy policies are nothing but a direct path to economic ruin. On top of that, they've targeted private schools, branding them as more elitist, while their approach to pensioners risks endangering lives. According to Labour's own reports, cutting fuel subsidies could result in up to 4,000 deaths. And let's not forget the adjustments to national insurance, NI contributions in the private sector, a move Rachel Reeves herself acknowledged would drive businesses to the brink of collapse. Thus, the proposal by the Prime Minister and the Chancellor for a new job tax set to take effect next spring is deeply concerning. Despite campaigning on promises to reduce national insurance contributions, they're now raising taxes instead, ignoring serious warnings from businesses and unions alike. This policy, inherited from the Conservatives, will not only push up employment costs, but also place an unbearable burden on businesses already struggling to stay afloat. Taxing both workers and employers will drain money from everyone's pockets while the economy remains fragile and unstable. Such measures will only add to the strain on businesses, which have endured 18 months of relentless challenges. With other costs, from energy to raw materials, spiralling out of control, higher taxes will only make survival harder. And when faced with critical questions about these decisions, instead of offering transparency and solutions, they evade responsibility, even though addressing these concerns is their fundamental duty.
The UK is a signatory of the International Criminal Court, so I just wanted to ask if you can confirm that he would be arrested if he came to the UK.
Well, that's not a matter for me as Home Secretary. The International Criminal Court is, of course, independent, and we respect its independence and the role that it has to play.
Cooper, the Home Secretary, is currently dodging questions about whether Benjamin Netanyahu would be arrested if he were to visit the UK following the International Criminal Court's ruling of guilt. This evasion is even more perplexing when she claims it's not her concern. It appears they have absolutely no idea what they are doing. We stand on the brink of a global war, and failing to answer such a critical question is simply unacceptable. Our politicians are now grappling with the fallout of their own decisions, all while authoritarian leaders like Vladimir Putin threaten nuclear war. This is no time to propose cuts to the defence budget. How did we even allow such incompetence to rise to power? At this point, One thing is clear. The Conservatives cannot remain in government. However, let's not overlook the fact that Rachel Reeves' anti-business budget is even worse than anything we expected. Personally, I believe Rachel Reeves should resign. The Labour government has implemented policies without ever including them in their manifesto. Private schools were part of their agenda, but there are far too many unresolved issues. Many businesses are actively opposing these policies, and even former Labour supporters are turning away in shame over what's unfolding. Is it time for a change in direction and a complete re-evaluation of our approach? Some of these announced policies seem like hasty, poorly thought out reactions. Take, for example, their policy on farmers like Bill and Aisha. It highlights a glaring lack of practicality in their approach. While some initiatives may look good on paper, the reality is often far from what was promised. This is a challenge the government must face and address. On the whole, however, we are arguably still doing better than the Conservatives, who ruled for 14 years. Just look at the legacy they left behind, a £22 billion deficit. That is a monumental issue that needs solving. This isn't surprising. Rachel Reeves had full access to financial data and worked directly with those numbers. She undoubtedly reviewed them in detail. Still, let's not forget that while they are preparing to sink £22 billion into carbon capture, a technology that has failed almost everywhere, these investments have wasted billions and seen most projects abandoned halfway through. Ed Miliband was involved in the announcement of this failed investment. On the same day, they revealed a £22 billion financial black hole, which many saw as a blatant scam. Regardless, the path forward must include green energy. I've always believed this. It's undeniable that if we don't act decisively on green energy initiatives, we will leave nothing for future generations. Therefore, green energy and its related plans cannot be overlooked. That said, reflecting on what's been achieved over the past 4 months, there have been significant positive changes. The government has increased wages for teachers, doctors and nurses, and supported breakfast clubs for children, especially those from vulnerable backgrounds. But is there concrete evidence that these measures were genuinely necessary? As a teacher, I understand the struggles of parents, particularly those in low-income families who have to work. Studies show that children who lack access to early education fall behind, and this is unacceptable. Regarding policies, there are a few commendable initiatives, but the current economy remains in dire straits. It's too early to conclude that we are doing worse than the previous government. Let's not forget the mess they made of the economy. This government needs more time to prove its capability. Undoubtedly, public trust has yet to materialise, but can we afford to grant Labour the same chance? The hypocrisy of Rachel Reeves is undeniable, especially given that she knows the NLA is harming businesses. She admitted as much in Parliament, yet she continues to push these policies, disregarding the consequences. Looking back at the policies and debates during the election cycle, none have justified the financial black hole we now face. No policy has clarified the poor management of public funds. The reality is that we need swift capital mobilisation, and this is an urgent task. Perhaps this is the only viable course of action. While it might not be agreeable to everyone, none of us are financial experts or hold the reins of power. Rachel Reeves seems unable to fully endorse what's happening. It's hard to find anyone who considers these policies reasonable. Yet, she insists that Labour deserves a chance to prove itself. What do people think about the issues we have discussed in today's video? Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest political developments in the UK. Thank you all and see you in the next videos.